Real meditation is learning to be still. As the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. Be still and understand the I am is God. That is within you. The creative power within you is either good or evil. The creative power within you is either God or the devil. Power itself is totally neutral. Electrical power, here's the lights. It's totally neutral. It will not hurt you. It will not do you any good. It's just neutral. It depends on how you use it. You get a good electrician, and this is what happens. We have air conditioning, we have music, we can have movies in here, a television, we have nice lights, and all of this is beautiful because whoever used this power knew what they were doing. The same power in my hands, and in 10 seconds this place would go up in flames. Because I don't know how to use it. I don't know the positive from the negative or whatever. There'd be a short circuit, and I'd burn the place down. And I have done things, you know, where I gotten behind and screwed wires together, you know, and then smoke comes out and all of this kind of stuff. Because you're fooling with the power. The power has nothing, the power is not going to hurt anybody, or the power is not, it's neutral. It depends on how you use the power. So if what comes out of you is a power, it depends, is it good or is it evil? Is it God or is it the devil? It depends on what comes out of you. It has nothing to do with any guy with a beard sitting on a planet somewhere. And if the guy with the beard was sitting on the planet somewhere, you know, what would you think? I mean, what would you think if you created all this, you've outlined all of this through these speakers, you've told people in symbolism, you say in the Bible, you got a Bible here, you say throughout the whole book of the Bible, don't take it literally, it's allegorical, it's parables, numerology, do not take it literally, it's all symbolism, and what do? They take it literally. What are you going to do? And then they say they're going to wait for the second coming, and the guy that came the first time got killed, and he's sitting up there and saying, I'm not going to go back a second time. The people are crazy. See, crazy people down there. And they are crazy people. And so now you see the great intervention and this understanding. What we have to do is be still. See? Now, people give you a lot of techniques on how to meditate. But the problem with the techniques of how to meditate is if you are following a technique, you are doing something. You cannot follow a technique unless you do something. And as soon as you start doing something, you're not meditating. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to take 3 breaths. And I'm going to visualize a candle burning in the middle of a, you know, you're doing all of this. Your mind is doing all of that. And that's not meditation. There's a great book, I don't know if you'll be able to find it, it's written by a 14th century Catholic monk. It's called The Cloud of Unknowing. An obscure book written by an obscure man. But it's an excellent book about meditation. And it takes you to the point where it only works if there is an absolute total consumption on your part into nothingness. And that's not that easy from the standpoint of achieving it, because if you stop for just 10, 15 seconds and let your mind sit, you'll see that your mind is like a monkey cage in there. This thing's swinging back and forth and chirping and going on all the time because you've never allowed it to be still. Nobody ever told you. Even in church and religion, they say, God is where? God is here in my heart. But that doesn't mean with the heart. The heart means the center. It's here. That thing which we call God is in the center. It's here, but we've never paid any attention to it. Most of us never even knew we had a right hemisphere of the brain. Most of us never knew we had a pineal gland of the brain. Never understood these things because the church wouldn't allow us. They said that the man up here with the robe on will save you if you'll just do what you're told, get up when you're told, kneel when you're told, sing when you're told, put the money in when you're told, get out when you're told, come back when you're told. All this nonsense. Instead of understanding there is a need for a renewal to happen within each one of us. And that renewal comes very, very easily if we simply expose ourselves to this power. So the mind cannot be involved.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to A Freak Sense World, and I am your host, Charlie Freak, and again, such an absolute joy and pleasure to be here with all of these such goodly, godly people on People for People Radio. And I see this opportunity to be able to share God's truth with you weekly as just one of the greatest gifts in my life. It is an honor that is bestowed upon me. And I thank you all so very much for being here. And for taking part in this sharing of gnosis. And I've said this before, and I will say it again and again and again. What you're hearing from me is not me of the physical or the material plane of the left brain. I of myself can do nothing. Have we not heard that before? The words of Jesus Christ of the body and flesh in the Bible. When we are of the left brain, we are down on the valley floor. And the first thing that you note about being down low is you have no perspective. And where does all wisdom come from? Wisdom comes from achieving light, because when you achieve light, you become light. When you become light, you rise up into the air. When you rise up, you begin to see above the unevenness of the valley floor, and you begin to have a greater perspective. And this is where wisdom comes from, because we see more. And eventually, if we keep rising, we see all. And that is, of course, the position of God, both physically within the brain in the mercy seat, and metaphysically in counter space in heaven above us. He sees all. The Creator who created all sees all. We of the left brain, Dan of the north, or Simeon and Levi in the west, or Reuben the reckless of the south, we are all, in our fourfold nature, we are all flawed beings, because again, we are at the very bottom looking up. And of course, this is also an allegory for our chakras, the superhighway within us. What did Donald Fagen and Walter Becker write on their incredible album Asia? In my estimation, the greatest album of modern music that has ever been. They discuss the superhighway. I know this superhighway. I know that bright, familiar sun. I guess I'm the lucky one. And this is what we have to realize, is that we are never alone, and we are never separated by God. Our lack of God in the world, and the lack of God within each of us, is a relation to us living exclusively in the left brain, which therefore is the material plane, the left-hand path, redshift. And as we discussed on, I think, our last two radio shows, litmus paper tells us exactly who we need to be in all moments. This is the middle way that the Buddha taught us. And the middle way is the green plane, is the middle plane. Green is the heart chakra in the middle. And that is flat earth, the green, flat, middle earth that Professor Tolkien wrote about. And above are the 7 heavenly energies of God, and below are the 7 hellish energies of the devil. God is not the name of the Creator. God is simply a term, a metaphor for good, goodliness above. And devil, there is no such thing as a devil. It is simply an allegory for evil, the 7 evil layers below. So once again, when we are down at the base of our root chakra, the Muladhara, then we have no perspective. And if we're the ones who are in charge and making decisions with no perspective, well, guess what? What are most of our decisions going to look like? And hey, listen, I have been there too. And I simply got to a point in my life, and this is where you need to get as well. I got to a point in my life where I was tired of always being wrong. Why am I always making the wrong choice? Why does my life look this way and it's not how I want my life to look? And that's because I was putting myself in charge. And the allegory that I always give to Colleen Collywog, my beautiful partner, to Colleen is I always say, essentially, we are the Starship Enterprise. And of course, that's why Gene Roddenberry called it Enterprise, because when you enter within, you receive the prize. And it's the prize of prize, the present of presence. It is the connection to God. Enter and you shall receive the prize. Enterprise. That's why, it's how you know profoundly that Gene Roddenberry was writing all of those Star Trek episodes, not about outer space out there. There is no outer space out there. There's infinite inner space within us. And we are the captains of our own galaxy-class starship. Nobody gave us an owner's manual. Nobody gave us a single lesson. No one has told us virtually any truth about the human body, the temple of the human body and the temple of the human brain, that our bodies and our minds are temples and that they should be treated like temples. We've never been told any of this. So we have been born and raised in absolute ignorance. And yet we hold the keys to the most expensive, complex star cruiser, galaxy-class starship that is ever, and ever will be created. Because what you need to understand is this: the human body and mind, the creation of the human being, in particular our mind, is the greatest creation in all creation. In other words, we are the pinnacle of God's creation. And so again, going back to the Steely Dan song Home at Last from the Asia album, remember, Asia is simply cleverly a play upon Ajna. Ajna is the sixth chakra. That is the last in-body chakra of our 7 chakras, the superhighway. Ajna is the third eye chakra. And this is where Home at Last is. This is the journey in the song that Homer was writing about. All of the Greek classics are simply writing about the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They're all, the Vedas, the Upanishads, they're all writing about the stories within these ancient scriptures, these ancient metaphysical scriptures. And all those ancient metaphysical scriptures that were written are all taken from the night sky, astrology. And as with Santos Bonacci is known as Mr. Astrotheology. Theo is the study of Theo, the one. Theo, the one. And that is God. So theology is the study of God. Astrotheology is the study of God's truth or God's creation. What's written in the night sky is us. And brilliantly, folks, it's the parts of us that we can't see. In other words, it's what's inside of us. And mostly it's what's inside of our heads, which is the most difficult to see for ourselves here in the material plane, which is precisely why God created it that way, making it virtually impossible to know. So therefore, there is only one way that we can find out. How are we structured? How are we wired? Why is everything the way it is? And that's to go within and ask the Creator himself to create the ultimate talk show series, the ultimate podcast series, You and God, episode 1. And you just do this for the rest of your life, and when you get really good at it, you'll have 100 million subscribers, because everyone will want to listen in. It's so perfect and it's so beautiful, but it's all inside of you. The world out there, as we discussed last week, is real, is real, but it is not the higher way. It is not the higher path. The way out there is the way of temptation, and that's why it's there. the left-hand path. The way out there, the physical material plane that we see here by living in these physical forms on this physical earth is there. It's not bad, as Bill Donohue just talked about, and we're going to get into Bill's wonderful introduction in just a sec here. It's not bad. It's just one half of the duality that we find ourselves within. So again, in the beginning, there was God. God had a thought, and that thought was for there to be more. And out of that thought of desiring more came creation. And the beginning of creation was the singularity, us with God in perfect perfection, in counter space, in a metaphysical, non-material form. And when we felt the desire to try it for ourselves, think for ourselves, be independent of this perfection with God, and therefore we ate the apple from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that is Sibylline allegory for tasting of the left brain. And guess what? As soon as we bit into the apple, we found that there was a worm in it. One worm, and a significant worm. And it's a tapeworm. And that tapeworm, that one worm inside the apple, is your ego. Do you see that? This is the allegory of allegories. That when we desired to try all of this for ourselves on the valley floor with zero perspective, thinking for ourselves, we doomed ourselves to a soul existence within the desolate plane of the left-hand path, redshift energy, or the left brain, the carnal world, ruled over by two forces, a masculine and a feminine. But these are not the higher masculine and higher feminine forms. These are both the lower, the masculine and lower feminine forms. The duality, the lower masculine form is man, the demon running amok on the bottom of the valley floor on the physical plane. The lower form of the sacred feminine is the moon, and the moon goddess, which is known as Sin, because the moon, who rests above us, who moves in her beautiful S pattern, which when she returns, we don't see the return path. When she returns, it's the opposite of the first S, creating a second S, which is the number 8, eternal. And that's the exact same path and shape that the sun takes on its annual. The moon is weekly and monthly. The sun is daily and yearly. And this is the dichotomy between the left and the right, the father and the mother, the feminine and the masculine. So when we are solely here in the physical plane, then our sacred masculine and sacred feminine are the fallen ones, are the lower forms. And so the moon goddess Sin is ruling over our 5 physical senses with emotions. And that's the sin, that's the trap. That's the food from which the tapeworm feeds and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and virtually impossible to kill, impossible to destroy. And so really, when we see all of these one stories of man and man's purpose and life and journey that you hear in all of these nursery rhymes, that you see in all these Disney movies, that exist in virtually all of Hollywood's movies and all of the popular music that has come about, they're all singing about essentially the same thing, which is that one true journey of man. And that's why you see these certain forms as ubiquitous. And they may take on different names and shapes and sizes, but it's all the same story. And that story is the knight in shining armor, who is the prodigal son, who is tired of wandering about aimlessly as a vagabond and wants to return home to the father, but realizes that on his way back, there is a damsel in distress, and he cannot just go forward and leave the damsel in distress. He has to do something. And so he chooses to do something, which is to save the damsel in distress. Well, the damsel in distress is our sacred Mother Mary, and she is trapped down in the very base, just like we are. That's why we met her. That's why we meet the Sacred Virgin Mother down at the bottom of our journey, because that's where the cabal, the evil ones that rule over us, that's what they've done to the Sacred Feminine. Have you ever heard of this? It's called, within the occult circles of the so-called Illuminati, the cabal that are ruling over us. They have the ceremonies, which is the destruction or cremation of care. Cremation of care is the separation of the 8 into 4, because it's 4 and 4 to make the eternal 8. The 2 Ouroboroses. The Ouroboros below is the physical Mother Earth. The Ouroboros above, eternally, is our higher Father, our one true Father, or one true Mother. And what they consistently do in all of their actions, that's why everything they do mimics this, is they cremate or attempt to rape, murder the Sacred Feminine. And they do that by violently separating it from the Father. And that's what they call this separation of 4s. And that is because to make the eternal 8, there's 2 4s. There's 2 Ouroboroses above and below. And they simply want to exalt the masculine, the penis. And that's why you see all of these obelisks everywhere in celebration of their power. And this is not our one true Father. This is not God. This is Nimrod, or Baal, which is the false god. And that is, they think it's our one true God, but they're wrong. And the reason they're wrong is because they exist out of their left brain. You would never harm anyone, let alone the Virgin Mother, if you were in your right brain. But being in the left brain, they're ruled over by the ego. And that explains everything, folks. And it explains the title of our podcast today, which is Meditation, and why it is so sacred and so important. Because it is the only way to undo everything that I just explained to you. The evil ones who rule over us are there because we wish them to be. And I know that may sound absolutely crazy to you. No, Charlie, I absolutely do not want these people in power, and I do not want them ruling over me. Okay, really? Then why do you live exclusively out of your left brain? And when you can answer me that question honestly, then you will have the answer that will begin you on this journey. And again, that journey is the prodigal son or daughter who is tired of being a sinner, being a whore, and meandering, wandering about as a vagabond, tasting sin everywhere, not knowing virtue anywhere, until such point that there's very little of our essence left. We are drying up. And that's why it's always the allegory of the desert and being lost in the desert where everything looks the same. That's what happens to us, isn't it? In this physical plane. After a while, everything tastes the same. Everything begins to look the same. All of our experiences begin to feel the same because we're sinking further and further into the trap, the quicksand, which is the left brain, ruled over by the tapeworm. Now, the tapeworm is the representation of the dragon or the hydra. And this is the great beast that we must kill to rescue the damsel in distress and raise her back up. And that's the genius and the brilliance of God's creation. Because in saving ourselves, in the prodigal son or daughter returning back home to the Father, we can't do it alone. We have to do it by serving others. And in this case, whom do we serve? This is brilliant. Do you see this genius? The genius of the Father, who knew how all of this would play out and therefore what we had to do. The genius of the Father is that we have fallen to the base of our torso, which is the first or root chakra, the Muladhara, red, shift, hell, bright red, hell on earth. That's us, hell on earth, where everything stinks because we're right down where our reproductive organs are and our anus is. That's why everything stinks in our life. You want your life to change, raise your vibration, get higher, become lighter than air, and rise. And so that's why we find ourselves with all of these similar problems. And this is where the cabal have hidden the mother. It's what you see in all of these video games that they create for our children to play. And they twist things always and create fear to scare, but it's essentially the same story. Just again, think of Mario and all of those Mario games with Nintendo. It's always having to go down into the bowels of the dungeon to fight the dragon, rescue the princess, and return her back up. Thank you, Mario. Mario is me and you-io. Me and you. It's the one true story. So we must kill the tapeworm. We must kill the left brain. And folks, what they're talking about, and this is why Jesus said this again and again and again in the Bible. And remember, Jesus in the Bible is on a journey, right? Jesus from Jesus Christ to Christ Jesus. And that's why in the Bible, when you begin reading the Bible through the new pages of the New Testament, Jesus is saying things many times that I of myself can do nothing. Do not pray to me. Do not ask me questions. You will do greater works than I, because Jesus is recognizing that he has not yet ascended. He is like us. He is of the physical body, of the physical plane. And this is why Jesus had to have crucifixion. We must all have crucifixion. The problem is that virtually everyone misunderstands what crucifixion is. Why? Because of course they lie to us about everything. So here's this that Bill Donohue, and I'm gonna jump back into this in just a moment here and go over that brilliant introduction. But this is what Bill was just saying. The Bible goes on and on and on, Old Testament, New Testament, that it's an allegory. And within the pages of the New Testament, the books of the various disciples are all saying Christ never spoke anything that was not a parable or was not an allegory. So hundreds of passages reminding you again and again that the Bible is an allegory. What is an allegory? An allegory is a fantastical representation of a higher truth by creating a physical story, by creating characters to explain out this single higher truth. So the single best example that we can always quickly give to explain that to you would of course be Jonah and the whale, or Jonah and the great fish. Jonah, his life is absolute chaos. Why? Because he does not have God in his life at all. Like what, 99% of humanity? They do not know God at all. If you do not go within via meditation, you do not know God, because God is within you. So Jonah is a representation of all of us. That's why it's such a perfect allegory to touch upon. And he is out on a stormy sea. Well, the stormy sea is an allegory for living in the left brain, and where we get everything wrong, because we're on the valley floor. We have no perspective. We're always making the wrong decision. And poor decisions lead to poorer decisions, and things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse for us, because we're always thinking more to fix the problems we create by thinking in the first place. Take no thought. Take no thought, says Christ again and again and again in the pages of the New Testament. Take no thought. So Jonah is us on the chaotic, turbulent sea of life in the left brain upon the physical plane. And on the boat, in a rage, he falls off and into the mouth of a great fish who just happened to be there by the side of the boat. And he fell down into the stomach of this great fish. And there he rested or sat or was existed for 3 days. Okay, so obviously, literally, if there was a fish great enough that he could fall into its mouth and came to rest in its stomach, he would be dead in seconds, just from the gases that are produced within the inside of a whale. It's commonsensical, so we know that that didn't happen literally, physically. So therefore we know it is a fantastical story. The flag is waving. It reminds us, yes, of course, allegory. Now, after being in this center chamber, the stomach represents the center chamber, just like the king's chamber and the queen's chamber in the Great Pyramids. In this center chamber, he rests for 3 days. Do we know anybody else who rested anywhere for 3 days? Well, of course, Jesus did after his crucifixion. And his body rested for 3 days before it rose into heaven at the right-hand side of God. And of course, that's exactly what happened to Jonah. The mouth of the great fish rolled back. That's the stone rolling back in front of the cave, just as with Jesus. That's the fornix of your brain, by the way. And out came Jonah. When Jonah came out, he was a whole, healed man, because he had heaved himself up to heaven by living for 3 days in fasting, taking no food, no earthly food, no earthly water, no manna in the physical form, solely manna in the metaphysical form from God, which is what we're supposed to do, because manna is not mete. Manna is not a physical food or meat that you think you have to eat. The gifts of God are thoughts, godly thoughts, and that's the answer to this whole story, is taking no thought of the left brain and solely receiving the great gift of God, doing everything for us, thinking for us in the right brain. And that's what Jonah does. He rests for 3 days, the fornix rolls back, the eucatastrophe has occurred, he sees the light, he's lighter than air, he rises up out of the mouth of the fish, and he is a knowing prophet of God. And then he spends the rest of his days exalting God's truth and teaching God's truth to all those that would follow in his path. And of course, this is the perfect allegory. It's a perfect allegory because that's what we all must do. And it all comes back, as I think I've said to you on every single one of our shows so far here on Freak Sense World, and that is the incredible song by the band, Robbie Robertson's brilliant creation, The Weight. Take the load off Fanny, Fanny being the sacred feminine mother, the Mother Earth, and stop putting all of the weight of our problems on the mother, and take the load off of her, and put the load right on me, right on God, on the greatest trust that exists, the shoulders of God. That's the strongest trust that there is. They hold up the weight of the world, are God's shoulders. They're so strong they hold up everything. And so we take the load off of us. I feel free. And you pass it to the Father, who's stronger than all things combined. And there's no weight to the Father. And he takes all of our problems and in return gifts us heaven upon earth. That's how we return to the perfection of singularity in the beginning with God in heaven, is heaven upon earth. And that is us, the resurrected man, Jonah, coming out of the whale. Okay, so thank you for being patient with me, but that general overview is just so important, because this explanation is our one true story. So let's go back to the beginning of the show and that incredible 4-minute segment from An Incredible Man. Now, most of you know him. That is Bill Donohue. And Bill Donohue was a young man who grew up in New Jersey, in America, in a very, very violent domestic setting, where his father, who Bill said was actually quite a lovely man when you caught him in the right moments, the right brain. When he was of the right brain, he was a lovely man. But when he was the demon, when he was the Hydra, the dragon, the tapeworm, the beast of the left brain, he was a horrid creation. And he was violent beyond description to Bill's older brother, to Bill, and to the mother. Of course, right? We always take out our anger upon the mother. Why? Because the mother is always there to nurture us, care and compassion. That's why the Illuminati have Bohemian Grove have the cremation of care service. It is to signify the separation of the eight, the yin and the yang, to take away the 6 from the 9, to remove the mother from this eternal equation of God's perfect 8. The two Ouroboros is united, the father and the mother, and that's our purpose, and that's our journey. And again, as I said to you earlier, how brilliant is this, that the only way that you and I can rise back up within us, because we've fallen all the way down to the base of our torso, right by our anus, where everything stinks, and we have to get back up into the heavenly mind. We can only do that if we become magnetized, because magnetism creates these scalar waves, longitudinal scalar, or what some people call Tesla waves. And these are the number 8, the eternal 8, where there's no beginning and there's no end, because they never dissipate. This is free energy that Tesla was teaching us about. And that's what's coming, by the way, through the takedown of the cabal, through the plan of Q. And very, very quickly and briefly, but on May 1st, you may have missed it, Colleen and I'll be doing a podcast on it shortly. And on May 1st, President Trump in the United States declared a state of emergency to protect America's bulk energy system from foreign threats and domestic traitors. And this is the beginning of the end for the cabal. And by the way, folks, this is the beginning of the end for a purely electrical service that can be metered, you can be charged for, that forces you into debt and keeps you a working slave for your whole life. If we have free energy, there's no need for us to go to work and to earn money from somebody else. If we have free energy, we can pump potable water to us from virtually anywhere. If we have free energy, we can build or grow anything that we require, and we can become independent again. And that's what's coming, and that's the first step of what President Trump did. Now, most people don't know this. Most people in the truth community don't want to know this. They just want to continue hating Donald Trump because they believe that a man that fooled the cabal and tricked everyone into thinking that he was just another demon and not a goodly, godly soul, to take them down from within, because that's the only way. You have to control the presidency if you're going to take down all of this evil in the United States. And the truth community, who are supposed to go wherever the truth leads them, no matter what, because the only thing that we exalt is the truth. We have no other agenda except the truth. Nope. The truth community just wants to sell their individual brand or product and get you to donate your money for the individual brand or product and teach fear, and you're a victim and you're weak and you're a slave. Doesn't that sound like somebody else? Isn't that like public school? Isn't that like watching TV? Isn't that like going to a movie? Isn't that what organized society does to us? Yeah, I think it is. I think there's a great similarity between what you're hearing from most of the big names in the truth community and organized society. They don't want you to be strong and independent. I want you to be strong and independent, and that's meditation. Because when you're in meditation, you're with God. And when you're with God, you know all things. The guessing stops. You've taken the load off of Fanny, and you put the load on God. And then guess what? Your 5 physical senses become trunked. It doesn't mean that you necessarily don't use them anymore. It simply means that they are ruled over by the 6 and 7 senses. Okay, now, you see how these tie into the chakras? The 6 and 7 senses, intuition and telepathy, are mirrored perfectly with the 6 and 7 chakras. Intuition, the third eye, is the 6th chakra is the third eye, ajna, and this is the connection to our intuition, where we know all things in every single moment. We absolutely do. We know if we're doing what we're doing is righteous or it is sinful. We know if it is right or wrong because it's hardwired into us by the Creator. All of us are gifted this. And when you choose not to listen to your intuition because it's inconvenient, that's the tapeworm. That's the ego inside of you, the left brain, that is making up excuses because of money, a lack of money. I have to do this. I must feed my family. You don't get it. You don't understand. Every time you make a sinful decision, what you stole will be taken away from you, because he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. You do not understand. If you have only a few shekels left in your pocket and you give them away, what you've done is you've just planted the seeds to turn yourself from a debtor into a creditor. We must all become rich creditors, because the Bank of Banks is the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is a bank. It's where you store your 10 Commandments. It is where you store your essence, your soul, your truth. And your wealth, your true wealth, which is what you build up by the decisions you make and the actions you take, is stored in the Bank of Banks, the armored bank, the armored car. And that's the Ark of the Covenant. And where is that? That's the third ventricle of your brain, the centermost, innermost spot of your mind, of your skull. That's where your mind is, because your mind and your brain are not the same things. You have a brain, but that's not where your existence comes from. Your existence is your awareness, is your consciousness, which is your soul. And that can only be bestowed by God. And again, we can't get into this today, but very quickly, that's why when you procreate physically by ejaculating your semen outwards, which we should never do, because your semen is your essence. It's why it's one of the 2 fluids that are is inside the spine, is inside the cerebral spinal fluid. There's 2 things in your spine, your semen and the chrism oil, the 2 most important things in the world. And what do? We just treat life like a joke. We're Homer Simpsons drinking Coke, eating pretzels and Doritos, double cheese, triple cheese chips. And what does that do? Makes us acidic. What is the acid in our body? It kills everything, and it kills Jesus Christ, the chrism oil. Every single moon, 13 times a year, 13 cycles of the moon within us, 13 moons. Every single moon, 13 times a year, Santa Claus, Al the chemist, and the colostrum secretes the milk and the honey. The milk and the honey together become the chrism oil. They fertilize the psychophysical seed born in the solar plexus. All life comes through the sun. And they fertilize in the sacral plexus, sacrum, sex, the sexual place. That's where we fertilize. That's where the milk and the honey from Santa Claus go all the way down the Ida and the Pingala through the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, and they mix together and fertilize the psychophysical seed created in the solar plexus. And then that is what journeys back up inside your spine. And if your body and mind be pure, if it be virgin, if it be on the path that is straight and narrow, which is the spine, if it be alkaline, then it shall rise. Because when you are alkaline, you're lighter than air. And you can't help but rise because you're lighter than air. When you're acidic, you're heavier than a rock, and you sink to the bottom, and you stay in the bottom, and you go around and around and around this wheel until such time that you choose to get off of this rock and to start doing things the right way. What's the right way? The virtuous way. And what is the virtuous way? Take no thought. Stop eating from the apple of the left brain, which has a worm in it. That's your ego. And your ego hates you, and your ego hates itself, and it hates everyone. And your ego aligns perfectly to the Cabal. Why? Because these Kabbalistic families, and there are only a few, and remember, they will fall, because evil hates itself, and they will chew off their own arm to spite themselves. That's what evil does. Evil always loses, and good always wins, as long as good stands up for itself. But if you're in a fear mode and fear of dying, you'll never stand up for yourself, because you're afraid of dying. But what does Jesus again say in the Bible? And please listen to me carefully here. You can only return home. The prodigal son or daughter can only return home with the mother if you first die. You must die upon the cross. It's not a physical cross at a place called Golgotha or Calvary, which both, by the way, means skull, the place of the skull. It's the crucifixion that occurs between the physical body at Atlas, the 33rd and final vertebrae of the spine, super solid, blocking entrance into that of the skull, which houses the brain and the mind. And that's where we must go. And when we cross over is the crucifixion. Crucifixion is crossifixion. So crucifixion is the crossing over from the physical body into the metaphysical third eye, the metaphysical third ventricle of the brain, that innermost center, empty. The scientists tell you it's just empty. No, it's not. It's filled with you. The center of the third ventricle is called the optic thalamus, and that's the light of the world. You are the light of the world. So, again, going back to the beginning of the brilliant Bill Donohue, and as I was describing earlier, Bill's life was hell upon earth. And when Bill grew up, he wanted to know God. And so Bill began actually, took steps to become an ordained minister, and began teaching his flock, his following, within a relatively, sort of straightforward Christian church. And Bill just sort of realized that what he was teaching didn't make sense, and that it wasn't helping anyone, including himself. And so Bill went within himself via meditation. He took a chance, a kid from New Jersey, that's a big chance, to take his daydreaming and take it further. And he experimented with meditation, and it led him to all of this gnosis. And then Bill broke away from organized religion, and with a connection to a friend, he just set up shop in the basement of a business above, and down in the basement, down in the belly of the beast, right there in New Jersey, Bill started sharing these truth of truths, the gnosis of gnosis, this highest of highs. And it's brilliant. And for Colleen and I, if we want to watch something that is the funnest, best experience to watch, we'll put on, for example, like a Santos Bonacci podcast, or we'll put on a Bill Donohue episode, one of these 1 hour long Bill Donohue podcasts. They are brilliant beyond description, because what Bill is sharing with you is the whole story and the purpose of man. And that's Bill places at the beginning of it meditation. So in the podcast, in that little 4-minute segment that we heard from Bill, what was Bill talking about? Bill was talking about that God's creation is dualistic, that there's electricity and there's magnetism, there's the Father and the Mother, there's above and below, there's heaven and hell, there's right and left, right and wrong, all these things. But everything is neutral, because God's not evil. We simply have a choice to use God's beautiful creation for evil, but God's not evil. Therefore, nothing that God creates is evil. It's all neutral. It's what we do with it, people, by the choices that we make. And herein lies the problem. If no one tells you this, and if no one tells you that you are what you think, and you are how you breathe, you are what you eat, if they've got you breathing wrong, if they've got you eating wrong, if they've got you thinking, that by thinking you'll get far in life and make lots of money because you'll be a really smart, go to university and think some more and get a bigger degree and make more money, and you think that you're going to find happiness that way, that's why you have these midlife crises, because you wake up going, oh my God, they've been lying to me. And most people, what do? They deny it. They suppress it. They know that they've been lied to. They know their life is a lie, but they can't handle it, and they suppress it, and they grow older, faster. And this is why you see the creation of creation, who, even if you don't want to take this gift of living forever, which is very real, then you should live at least for 1,000 years, very easily. You don't, because you poison your body and your mind from day one. That's what they do. Vaccines, poison. Eating acidic foods, poison. And what are the most acidic foods? Meat, dairy, and eggs. Sorry if you don't like that, but it's the truth. Do you know what we are physiologically? Now, there's no one that's ever challenged me on this. There's no one who has ever questioned me on this, because you can't. 100% both outwardly and inwardly, we are frugivores. A carnivore. So we have 4 different types of living, breathing, sentient beings that consume sustenance. You have the carnivores, you have the omnivores, you have the herbivores, and you have the frugivores. We are frugivores. What is the biggest difference, let's say, between a frugivore and a carnivore? Carnivores, they don't have jaws that subtly go side to side and mill or grind their food. They have huge fangs. Their jaws open great distances, therefore they can close with great force, and they are rippers, tearers, and shredders. And then they have long, subtle tongues, and they lap up the blood, because that's what these carnivores want. They want blood. They're blood drinkers. And that's why. And if you look at kills, sometimes if they're very hungry, they will eat some of the meat. But the meat that they eat, folks, is not the flesh, because flesh is not meat. It's just dead, rotting flesh. It's tissue. That's not meat. The meat are the organs, and they will eat the organs. Why? Because they're filled with blood. It's the blood that they want. And when do they consume? After making a kill, right away, because it's fresh. They want fresh blood. So, human beings are frugivores. What is a frugivore? A frugivore is anyone or anything that, with opposable thumbs, that eat raw fruits, vegetables, sometimes forages for nuts and grains, but it's mostly just raw fruits and vegetables, predominantly fruits, raw, fresh fruits. That's what they are. And what do all frugivores have in common? Extreme high intelligence, quick, sharp, clever minds, usually very slim, very athletic, very crafty, both of the body and the mind, supple. And so we share these things in common. And it's really, again, only been over the last 100 years that human beings have really known any, other than isolated cases, any sort of crises about obesity. This is a recent thing. They'd like to tell you through Henry VIII and other great historical figures that they've all made up, that there's lots of fat people and you just go on ahead being a fat person. Don't you worry about it, because It's really a disease, and you're a victim, and we, the government, will help you with your sickness and your disease. We'll give you some drugs, and then that'll allow you to eat your Doritos, and you'll be happier. Wow, 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 wow. The pinnacle of God's creation, just ignorant slaves. So frugivores are thin, athletic, agile, quick, clever, and they eat raw foods. Our intestines, so the process from eating, and that takes a long time because, again, we have flat teeth and we grind. Then it goes into an extremely long, like upwards of 30 feet, our intestines, until we excrete the waste out of us. And so it can be in there for a long time. And that's why, again, eating raw fruits and vegetables is so important, because they're fibrous, and then the fiber helps to clean the arterial walls, clean the intestinal walls, and everything just goes through the body nice and quickly, and we stay clean all the time, because cleanliness is inwardly, not externally. And of course they taught us the other way around. We are disgustingly filthy inside, but boy, we all look really nice with all of our makeup that's taken by torturing and murdering animals. But that's okay. I look good, and that might get me a rich husband, and that's everything. And of course it's nothing. It's upside down. Our reality is completely upside down. So a carnivore has a very short intestine. Why? Because it goes in and it goes right out. And if you're putting these heavy things like organs into your body, and of course we don't eat the organs, that's disgusting. We just eat flesh, tissue, which isn't even meat. You're eating something that should never even be consumed, and your body has no idea how to process. Don't let any other doctor tell you otherwise. It doesn't. Your body makes amino acid after amino acid after amino acid, trying to break down flesh, and it can't. It can't because it just doesn't know what it is. It has no idea. And for example, our teeth, everyone has got cavities and they're drilling. That's craziness. That's insanity. You don't break your teeth. Your teeth are part of the ley lines of your electrical grid within you. It's how your electricity runs from the dome, the firmament of your skull, all the way down to your base. And that's how you can be fast and subtle and athletic, is by these quick, instantaneous electrical sparks within you. But you can't when your teeth are all broken up, and they break up these beautiful, perfect ley lines within you of your electrical energy. There's no reason for us to have a cavity. Why do we have cavities? Because we eat acidic foods. I'm sorry. If your cognitive dissonance doesn't like you to hear this, that's your issue. This is the truth. Your teeth, God didn't make dentists. God didn't make doctors. If we needed them, he would have made them. He thought of everything. So there are no dentists. Why? Because there are no problems with our teeth. We make all of our problems. Our teeth don't know what to do with acid, because there's nothing about us that says acid. Everything about us is alkaline. If you can be alive for thousands and thousands of years with your second set of teeth, never, ever, ever having any problems, of course, unless you have an accident and you chip something or whatever. But the miracle of alkaline body and mind is that it heals everything, and your teeth will heal. Colleen and I have proven that ourselves. Enamel grows back. Part of a tooth can grow back. You just have to be alkaline. Al, the chemist, is alchemy. Alchemy is alkaline, right? Santa Claus in the colostrum is alchemy, alkaline. You must be alkaline. We are alkaline frugivores, not acidic carnivores. And yet, how do we live our lives? Both physically and metaphysically, by what we eat and the jobs that we do, how we make our money, carnivores. What is the coronavirus? It is, they created it for us in one word. It's not two words. They made the coronavirus for us as one word. Why? Because it's a perfect anagram for carnivores. It makes the word carnivore, and it's telling you who they are and what we have fallen to. we have been tricked by the carnivores of the left brain to become carnivores of the left brain instead of goodly, godly souls of the right hemisphere. Okay? And to do that, we have to go within via meditation, stillness, and silence. So, meditation is the key. And I want you to understand this. I just said meditation is a key. And you can literally take that one to your Ark of the Covenant bank. Meditation is a key. It's a key that opens the door. What door? Where? The door inside of you. And in the Bible, in 1 Kings chapter 6, it goes into perfect detail of the creation of Solomon's temple. And Solomon's temple, the winding staircase within, what's it all for? To get you to the middle room. The middle room or the third room, is the third ventricle of your brain. The third room, or the middle room in Solomon's temple, is your third ventricle of your brain. The innermost, centermost point of your existence, the seat of your soul. And it's there on the right-hand side of Solomon's temple is a door. But you must have a key to open that door. And that, of course, is an allegory. It is a metaphor for rising your essence, your semen, your chrism oil up into heaven upon earth, which is like the Steely Dan song. It's coming back home. It's getting back home to God by going up into the third ventricle of the brain is home at last. That's the prodigal son returning home. But again, the only way the prodigal son can return home is by raising the magnetic Mother Mary. Magnetism rises. We can only rise up by becoming magnetic and not electrical. Because as Tesla described for us, electricity is a downward causation. It takes us down. Electricity is not bad. It's not the way, it's not the answer, because electricity is a downward causation. And and remember, electricity is made up of temporal waves, transverse waves. Transverse waves are temporary waves between the temples. They don't last. If you live exclusively through electricity, you will die. Everything goes down and you die back into the earth. You don't have to. You can rise again. You not see this in every single one of these ancient metaphysical scriptures, these manuscripts of life. They're all telling you the exact same thing, the exact same story, and that is the regenerated, risen man. And you can only do this by becoming magnetic. And there's only one source of magnetism within you, and that's the Mother Mary, the Kundalini serpent, coiled up tightly 3.5 times down in the base of your torso. What's the base again? The Muladhara, the root base red chakra. And it must be uncoiled. And you can only do this by loving the mother and coaxing her out of her den. And by loving the mother, by doing the work, meditation, an alkaline diet, access to sunlight, sun God, bringing the father and the mother back together again, breathing correctly. This is so important. We're going to get into this as we get into the nuts and bolts of meditation in a second. This is how, by doing the work, and that's what the work is. So the work is meditation, which is controlling your breathing, which is yoga. Yoga is not just some athletic pose. No. Yoga is the entire encompassing system of raising the physical to the metaphysical. That's what yoga is. It's all encompassing. It's the same thing with Tai Chi. You think Tai Chi is some sort of martial art. It's not. That's what they've created it. That's to distract you from what the truth. Tai Chi is a philosophy, just like yoga. That's why it encompasses yoga. It's breathing. It is yoga. It is meditation, and it is goodly, godly foods, which are alkaline. That's how you do the work to raise yourself back up to heaven. And that's what raises the mother. That's how you get the Kundalini to rise, by becoming alkaline. And then she uncoils around the spine. So do you see how beautiful this is? You are the chrysamol. You are inside the spine with the semen. So as you learn to practice sacred white tantric sex, control the orgasm or goldgasm spasm, the golden spasm within, up the spine. You're forcing your semen, your white, pure, virgin semen, purity, to rise up the spine. And when you do that, the Kundalini magnetic energy follows you in an 8, wrapping itself around outside. So father inside, mother outside. Right? Exactly, right? Mother Earth out there, physical Earth, God in heaven inside of us, inside. You see how this works? It's so perfect, isn't it? When we do the work, the righteous work, we raise the mother home. That's letting the Kundalini rise magnetism. Now again, folks, please listen. Magnetic energy is based upon these longitudinal or scalar or Tesla waves. They make the number 8. There's no beginning, there's no end. They don't dissipate. That's what Tesla's talking about, free energy. That's what's coming to you through Donald Trump. And you want to think he's an orange-haired clown and part of the Illuminati. You want to hate him. Have at it. But you're not going to ascend. You won't ascend until you let go of your false beliefs, belies. You're belying to yourself when you believe what you've been taught by these snakes selling us these apples with worms in them. Come on. We have to go within. We rise up into heaven by going within. Okay, so Solomon's Temple, the whole purpose of Solomon's Temple, to get to the third room. And then in the third room, there's a door to the right, but it needs a key. Meditation is the key. So you can think of meditation both metaphysically as a key and literally as a key. The only way you will open the door to the right in Solomon's Temple, which is your third ventricle, the optic thalamus, which is the dark sun, the black sun inside of you, because it's completely dark in there. You must put that light in there. You put the light. What's the light? That's Mother Mary, magnetism, white, bright light of magnetism, of purity, rising back up. Yeah, you see how this works? You see, if you're selfish and you live a selfish life, only thinking about yourself, you'll never ever ascend. You'll never live forever. But the moment that you live for others, the moment you care about animals, the moment that you care about all people, regardless of their, we're all one, we're all the same. But this race, creed, color, all these lies to distract us, we're all the same. But when you do love everyone and everything in all moments, that's the way. That's the answer. That's how we rise. You can only rise by bringing the mother home. That's a selfless act. That's a selfless. That's the movie Shrek. Shrek, the ogre living in the swamp. That's us. We're all become green because we're eating the wrong foods. We're thinking the wrong thoughts. Pornographic, just disgusting what we become. Slurping back beer, alcohol, and Doritos chips while we watch, sock porn TV from Hollywood that destroys our value system. Come on. Throw out your TV if you haven't done so already. The greatest television in the world is the night sky. The waves horizontally and vertically create the greatest pixels in the history of images. It's crystal clear. And it's all there for you. And it plays out the story, the greatest story ever told, which is you, which is going on, what's inside of you. That's what the night sky is, what astrology is. It's the passage of the sun through the constellations. 12 constellations with Jesus. Jesus is one, constellations, which are his apostles, are 12, the 12 cranial nerves, making 13. Well, guess what? The whole journey of meditation is to create the 13th cranial nerve. And see, this ties in with raising the chrysamoil. That's why this chrysamoil raising is the most important thing that there is. And the only way you can raise your chrysamoil is via sacred sex because the chrism oil and the semen are what are inside your spine, and the only way that they can go up is to have goodly, godly, righteous, white tantric sex with your partner in love. Not hurting, not taking, giving, loving, freely, eternally, together as one. And then you coax Mary Kundalini up out of her viperous den, and she uncoils and she rises up into heaven, and she takes us with her. She draws the chrism oil up as well. Do you see how this works, how it's all interconnected? You must become a goodly, godly, virtuous soul that helps others. How do you help yourself? By helping others. The answer to all of your problems. You want to become a creditor, not a debtor. How do you make money? How do you coin valuables? By being goodly and godly. Like we said earlier, when you refrain from ripping somebody off and you give the last shekels in your pocket to someone who desperately needs it, even though you desperately need yours, guess what will happen? On your way home, you'll trip over a rock that you didn't see there on the side of the road. You fall down and you curse yourself and your bad luck. You kind of got a bit of a scrape on your arm. But as you're getting yourself to pull yourself back up, there's a $50 bill, a $100 bill, or there is a rock that looks like it's gold, something of great value. That's how it always works, folks. You never know how God will do it. There's an infinite number of ways in which he can create and provide, but that's how it happens. If you think that you become rich by making money out there and ripping people off, or ripping your family off by going to work, I'm a hard-working person and I'm a good man because I'm a hard-working person all day, but you've abandoned your family. Your children go to a government-controlled school and they teach them lies and they inject them with vaccines. That's not righteous. It's not goodly and godly. I'm sorry again if that hurts you, but it isn't goodly and godly. It is not righteous. It's wrongful and it's sinful. And we do it. We've all done it. I did it because we're all taught from birth to be fools and not wise. And how do we get wisdom? By going in through meditation. Okay, so Bill Donohue started the show with that beautiful segment, teaching us, telling us, and what did he say is meditation? It is stillness and silence. That's how you know the earth is flat. That's how you know the earth is still and silent. And when you look up to the sky, it does, doesn't it? The sky looks curved. It looks like a dome. It looks like a firmament. Why? Because that's the shape of your head. Of course the earth is flat. And of course there's a dome or a firmament, because that's our head. From the bridge of the nose, where the sphenoid bone is, that's where the third ventricle of the brain rests, just above the sphenoid bone, in the exact center. That's where the Ark of the Covenant is. It protects your third ventricle. The temples make up the Ark of the Covenant. The cherubim, the cerebrum of the brain, protected by the dura mater, the arachnid, and the pia mater, the soft mother, the hard mother, and the spider's web in between, linking everything together, protects the dome. You are so protected by the temples and the dome, and that's the Ark of the Covenant, protecting what? You. Your essence is the third ventricle of the brain. That's everything. That's where we have to get. That's flat earth. And what's interesting is that when you look out anywhere in the city, because in the city they've got buildings everywhere, you can't see more than 20 feet in any direction. But if you get out of cities and you look in the free countryside and you have long distance vision, that long, slow vision, what do you see? Everything runs to, our perspective vision runs to a vanishing point in the distance. And where is this vanishing point? It exactly at eye level, third eye level. And how do you know this? The sides both come in towards the center. The top and the bottom both run up and down towards the exact center. And at the very, very end of our vision, it gets to a dot. That dot is called the monadic point, and that is part of the monadic circle, mono, one, God. God vision. The God vision. And that shape of our vision, where the sides run in to become very narrow, and the top and the bottom run up and down to create very straight, that's the path of the straight and narrow. So again, what does the Bible teach? Everywhere the Bible teaches we must be virtuous, following the path that is straight and narrow. That's why your eyesight works the way that it works. It's telling you in every moment. And that dot that you see in the distance is a reflection of the dot. And until we do the work by raising the Mother Mary up, have light in darkness. And we cannot see. Why do the Illuminati value the owl? Because the owl sees at night, sees in the darkness. That's the whole point of illuminating. Do you have gas in your car? Again, Steely Dan, Kid Charlemagne, is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car. You have to put oil in your lamp. You have to do the work to become alkaline to raise the mother. The mother puts the oil in your lamp. The oil is the chrism oil. The oil is your semen. They are what going eternally pure and white. They are what are going into your lamp, your third ventricle, and keeping it lit forever. And then we exalt God's supremeness from above, not from below. And we're gifted with perspective there. That's knowing and seeing all things. That's the whole thing, folks. That's the right brain to the left brain. So that's what Bill Donohue was talking about as he was going through this understanding of what meditation is, stillness and silence. And he said, when you go within, you go to a place where you recognize that you are with the I am. I am is God. What does God say to Moses upon the mount? Moses says, what is your name, Lord? I am, I am. I am, in ancient Hebrew, is Yahweh. And if you apply vowels, it becomes Yahweh. And if you translate from the ancient Hebrew, Yahweh, to ancient Greek, it becomes Java. And Java with vowels becomes Jehovah. Jehovah, Jehovah, Yahweh, both mean I am. God's name is I am, not God. When we say God, it's okay. Well, we're saying God. We're just saying good. And that's what God is. He's goodly. And when we don't take of God, we're the opposite of God, which is the opposite of good, evil. That's it. Devil is evil with a D. God is good with an O taken away. That's all it is, folks, is good and evil. It's the choice between good and evil. And therefore, what Bill Donohue is telling you is that life is a choice. So stop being a victim and blaming everybody else for your problems. Even though they do lie to us and it's horrible, it's still a choice between what is right and wrong, between what is virtuous and what is sinful. And as I told you, if you want even physical money, which really means very little, but if you think it means a lot, if you want lots of physical money, then you must start making virtuous decisions, or you must steal it. Because that's all the cabal do. That's all these wonderfully rich people, the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, and they have such fine clothes and such tall top hats, signifying their connection to God, by the way. That's what those top hats are, top heavy, of the higher brain, of the higher mind. Right. Like they don't know the right hemisphere of the brain. But they like to think that they do. They like to think that they are. And they as tapeworms that they are, they like to show their power over us by dressing in all of their fancy clothes. Because they think everything is out there instead of in there. And they are always trying to, like Nimrod in the Old Testament, trying to take heaven by force. And you can't. You'll always fail. They'll always lose. We'll always win. All you have to do is stand up to the demons and you win. But Charlie, I might die along the way. But you have to die. You don't get this. That's the whole story of Buddha, of Krishna, of Zarathustra, of the Zoroastrian tradition, of Zoroaster. It is the story of Horus in the Egyptian tradition. Of course, it's the story of Jesus Christ to become Christ Jesus. We all must die of the left brain. We must willingly, as Harry Potter does, walk selflessly into the forbidden forest without any friends, in complete darkness, and allow himself to be killed by Lord Voldemort. Who's Lord Voldemort? Is himself. That's why towards the end of the movie, when Harry and Lord Voldemort fall off the building together and they're wrestling each other, and the pictures go back and forth between Harry and Lord Voldemort, and then there's that one perfect image, and it's half Harry and it's half Lord Voldemort. And guess what side Lord Voldemort was on? The left side. Guess what side Harry was on? The right side. That's what it is. The entire story of Harry Potter is the left brain versus the right brain. It's the one story. It is the story of Jesus Christ. Harry Potter is Jesus. Christ to become Christ Jesus. And you must allow yourself to be killed by the ego itself. The ego hates you and it wants to kill you. Let it. Let it think that it's one, because you cannot die. You are eternal. And when you give up of the left-hand path, of the redshift energies, of the devil, of Satan, of Saturn wearing the crown of Kronos, doing everything upside down the wrong way, when you give all of that up, then you cross over the river. The river is the horizontal divide in your brain between the left and right hemispheres. That's why Jesus always was teaching by the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee, or on the banks of the Jordan River. The Jordan River is the divide between the left and the right hemisphere. The shoreline of any body of water, like an ocean or a lake, is the horizontal divide. It's also called Lido, for Lido Shuffle, Boz Skaggs, or Steely Dan here at the Western World. Down at the Lido, they welcome you with sausage and beer. That's what they're all singing about, folks. They are tempting you with acidity. That's what Donald Walter is saying. Down at the Lido, the shoreline between the left and the right brain, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, is tempting you to stay in the left brain with sausage and beer. Yep. And you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice to go up and to the right. And that is start making virtuous decisions. So meditation is everything. Bill Donohue lays this out. So meditation is the key, a literal key that opens the door of Solomon's middle room or third room, the door to the right. And that is opening access to the pineal gland. Now, let's take a look at this. Pineal is pine cone. Pine cone from the pine tree, which is evergreen. It grows in the northern boreal forests, which is at the very, they say North Pole, but it is the center pole, of course, because it's the center of the earth. It's the center pole within us, the chimney or the foramen from the claustrum to the third ventricle of the brain inside of our heads. That's why it's the center point. That's where we have to go to, and that's why these pine trees with the green needles for balance between two worlds, green, evergreen, always green, which is the signifying the harmony between the left and the right, above and below. That's the pine tree, is the perfect symbol, because the pine needles are evergreen and they always point up to heaven. The roots of the pine tree grow deep, deep, deep. That's how they're able to live in such cold and without hardly any water, because they have incredible deep roots below. So digging deep down into the wisdom of the mother and exalting yourself as high as you can go in evergreen needles up to the Father. Do you see? That's the pine tree. That's the pineal gland, and that's the pine cone. And the pine cone, by the way, only opens. How does the pine cone replenish itself? Because the seeds are trapped inside the pine cone. It only opens up under fire. Yeah, baptism of water by John the Baptist. Baptism of fire by Christ Jesus, the risen man. The baptism of fire is what transmutates us from Jesus Christ to Christ Jesus, from the flesh into the metaphysical. That's what we have to do. And this is through that door to the right, pineal gland. Now, pineal, pine, cone, pine, tree, evergreen, okay? Now, gland of the endocrine magnetic system within our bodies. Endocrine magnetism, magnetic system. What's a gland? G-land. A gland is G-land. God's land. That's right. Because all of our glands are where all the sacred secretions from Santa Claus, Al the chemist, come from. Where's the colostrum where Santa Claus exists? It exists, like I said, at the North Pole. That's why he's Santa Claus. He's at that center chimney, that center tube, at the crown, at the back of our skulls. He's at Middle Earth. Santa Claus is located at the North Pole, and he makes presents all year round. And his presents are his sacred secretions of the endocrine system. And guess what exists right above the colostrum, right at the entrance to the chimney that runs down? This is all factual. You can all look it up in all of the medical dictionaries. It's all there for you. It's the miracle of the human brain. It's all physically accurate as well. It's just unbelievable, but it's real. And that is the mercy seat. The mercy seat is God's seat within you, and that's where he is. God is within all of us in his mercy seat. The mercy seat exists just above Santa Claus in the colostrum at the North Pole. Come on. You've got to tie these pieces together, folks. You've got to unify your beliefs into gnosis. You have to know these things, and the truth is all-encompassing. It ties everything. That's why when people say, you know what, like, I'm just not even going to think about flat earth, because ultimately it doesn't matter what of course it does. Of course it matters the shape of the earth and that it's still and stationary, because that's you. That's your head. That's what you have to get back to. That's everything. So this is that door to the right that we have to go to. The B ride to the G room. G room, groom, bride and groom. Raising the Kundalini Mother Mary up the aisle. The aisle is your spine. Raising the mother up the aisle. So you put her hand into hand of the Father. And they have the alchemical marriage in the middle room of Solomon's temple. This is the third ventricle of your brain. And the last chamber in the third ventricle of the brain is known as the chamber of the bridegroom. And guess what? It's blocked. Why? And how is it blocked? It's blocked by something called the fornix. Again, this is all true. This all exists inside of you. There is a rock, a round stone that has been rolled in front of the access to the chamber of the bridegroom. That's the fornix. The fornix is that round stone blocking the tomb, a tomb, Adam, a ten, a tomb, all is a tomb. That is the tomb that the body, physical body of Jesus Christ was placed into so that he could become of the Father, the Spirit, and rise up into heaven and become Christ Jesus. Jesus Christ to Christ Jesus. And that's why when Jesus transforms, he says, I am the light of the world. I am the way. Only through me shall you know the Father. Well, that's contradictory to earlier in the New Testament where he says, I myself can do nothing. Don't pray to me. Don't ask questions of me. You shall do greater works than I. Because that was Jesus of flesh and blood, the man. And the best he could do is walk on the maritime admiralty waters, which is what we must do. To do these things, you must throw off the yoke of this evil cabal that is ruling our existence. You must get out of the citizenship. The citizenship is the boat that they placed us on at birth by creating this false identity of 3 capitalized names. That's not us at all. Nothing can cost money. Everything is created by God and it's all free. So if there's no money and there's free Tesla energy, God energy, magnetic energy that is eternal, nothing costs anything, and you don't need a job because you have everything. You are God's exalted creation. You are the pinnacle of creation. You are the greatest thing there is. And I know some of you are looking at yourself going, oh, I sure don't look like it and I don't feel like it. But that's because you've been poisoning yourself of the body and the mind for 40, 50, 60 years. But trust me, you are the greatest creation of all creation. And you can live forever. And I want you to join Kaliwag in our journey to live forever. I want you to be happy. I want you to never know fear again. I want you to be exalted and have the connection to God that Kaliwag and I have by us living to do our work. That's what we do. We help others. We run our animal sanctuary here. We have 46 animals now. They're all injured, abandoned, cast away. We take them all in and we give our entire lives over to healing them. It's what we should be doing. We should be helping others. Sometimes the workload is staggering and I'm so tired I can barely move at the end of the day. But it's a good day. It's a good day when you're allowing another creation of God to live a beautiful solar day on this beautiful earth. It's everything. It's everything. That's selfless. That is a penitent man. A penitent man is he who is humbled before God. Remember how I said to you earlier, the only way you can get into Solomon's temple, to go to the door to the right, which you open through meditation. That's the key. Meditation is the key. The door to the right, the pineal gland. The only way is the spine. The spine is the path of the straight and narrow. And remember what these ancient stories and parables that I've written about and what we know about the ancient city of Jerusalem. The only way to get into, from the east gate, from God into the city of Jerusalem via the east gate. That east gate is insane. It is so small and narrow. It's a tiny door, and these camels are huge, and they're carrying so many things on their backs for all of these traders that go out into the desert seeking their fame and fortune, their riches. Well, the only way for these traders and these camels to get into the eastern gate of the city of Jerusalem and Old Jerusalem is to get on their hands and knees. That's what a penitent man does. Do you not see this? The only way into the eastern gate of the city of Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem, just like the city of Jericho and the story of Joshua and Jericho, they both are allegories for the third ventricle of the brain. The only way you can get into the third ventricle of the brain is by being a penitent man. And a penitent man is humble before God. We are on our hands and knees before thy Father. We take the load off of Fanny and we put the weight of our ridiculous, stupid thoughts on God's broad shoulders, his trust. And that's trusting in God. And there is truth in trusting in the trust. Trust, truth. The 3 T's of crucifixion that you must bear to cross over from temporary life into eternal life. That's the only way you can get into the city of Jerusalem or Jericho, the third ventricle of the brain. You must take your load off. That's what the camels, you see why Robbie Robertson said, take the load off? What did these camels and traders do? The trader had to get off the camel. He had to then unstrap the seat and the baggage, the burden of the camel, and take it off. The camel then had to get down on its knees to be able to get through this eastern gate. Do you not see this allegory, this parable, the parable of parables? Only the penitent man may know God, and the penitent man is humble before God, who serves God's creation. Serve God's creation, and you will know God. People tell me all the time, Charlie, I'm struggling. I'm having trouble meditating, and this we're going to dedicate the last part of the show to, is how to meditate. I have trouble meditating because I can't still my mind. Ask Collywog. I have no trouble dropping into meditation. I drop into meditation in a split second. I fall asleep at night in a split second. Colleen literally laughs and laughs and laughs about it, because by the time my head hits the pillow, I don't use a pillow. I should look into that. But as it hits the mattress of the bed, I'm asleep. I'm asleep because I've had a virtuous day. I am tired of the physical, and I am longing to reconnect with the Father in the metaphysical. I am that, and I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone else, because I am absolutely not. And when I was a fool of the left brain, a carnal mind, eating the apple filled with that one worm, I was as big of a fool as anyone else. But I can meditate and I can sleep so easily because I am virtuous, because I make only virtuous decisions, because it's a choice. I have the full power and right to make whatever choices I want. That's the gift of free will. I choose God. Whom do you serve? That's from the Lord of the Rings. Whom do you serve? Do you serve God, or do you serve the false god, Sauron, with the rings of Saturn around his one ruling finger pointing at you? Whom do you serve? I choose to serve God in God's creation. And therefore, Colleen and I are rich beyond belief in the things that matter. Our Ark of the Covenant within us is filled with great treasures and values. And we are able to create so many miracles. We gave on one of our podcasts, we talked about one of our 17 cats. Pi went missing for over a month. We just love all of our animals as our very own children. And we were just, Colleen was really sure that Pi was gone. And I just kept saying that we'll see. We will see. We'll see. We'll see what tomorrow brings. I think that Pi will come home. And every night before I went to bed, I would call out, because we live in the middle of nowhere, and the voice is Carrie. I called out for Pi to come home. And then one night, about a month after he had been gone, he just wandered back into the house and walked right past Colleen, and she jumped about 6 feet in the air and ran to Pi. And he must have been trapped somewhere because he was not in good shape. But in a couple of days, he was 100% himself again. And you can only create a miracle like that if you've got copious amounts of money in your bank. The bank is the Ark of the Covenant, and you create that real wealth. I don't care about other wealth. That's the wealth that's important to me. And I said to Colleen in that moment, you know what? That's $1 million check. We just wrote $1 million check to get Pi back, and it cleared. It cleared. So we're doing something right when you can create a real miracle like that in your life. Now, what I wanted to finish with the story of the Eastern Gate of Jerusalem. What is the name of the Eastern Gate of Jerusalem? It's called the Gate of the Eye of the Needle. The eye of the needle is what awaits you at the end of the path that is straight and narrow. And this is what literally happens as you go up your spine. You can't get past Atlas. Atlas is a capstone. He blocks your way. There's no way. So the only way that the vagabond son, the prodigal son, can return home from rising up the spine is to have a crucifixion. Crucifixion does not mean being nailed to a cross. You've been lied to. A crucifixion literally means to be charged 1,000-fold, or to be ascended 1,000-fold. This is where, by not ejaculating and having outward orgasms, and you hold that spasm, the golden spasm within you, you're building up that power of power. Those are the only atomic explosions that exist. I guarantee you, there is no such thing as as nuclear power or atomic bombs. They've lied to you. They are making fun of you because they tricked you into ejaculating your semen out there. That's the nuclear bomb, because that's you exploding out your essence, and that's how you make yourself die faster and faster and faster. When you control the beauty, and you should be having lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sex. Sex is a 3-letter word. It's not a 4-letter word. It's beautiful. But when you control, you become the Mastar, not the Monstar or Moonstar. The monster is Moonstar. Mastar is the mast of the ship, the sailing vessel of the seeker. C-K, K. Number 11. 11 is our master number. 1111 is the twin pillars. That's the 2 temples of your third ventricle. That is the center, that is the protection to the third ventricle of the brain, which is your essence, your soul. That's why on 9/11 they took down the twin towers. 9, God consciousness, and 11, the master number of the twin towers, because they told you on that day, September 11 of 2001, they're telling you that this was the destruction of God within you. Yep, they were almost there, and they almost got there. And if it wasn't for the Q Brigade, the Q movement, and President Trump, they would have succeeded. They absolutely would have succeeded, because we had fallen so far. That's what it means. So 11 is the Mastar number. You have to become a Mastar by controlling everything within you. And the biggest thing to control within you is the orgasm. It is the most awesome force there is. That's the nuclear explosion. It is. It's the nuclear explosion. Don't let the nuclear explosion out. And you know how they tell you that if there's a nuclear explosion, there's all this radiation, and the radiation kills you. And when the semen is within you, your semen is the most alkaline substance there is. When you ejaculate it out of you, it turns into acid. And you ejaculate your semen on the one you love the most, your partner, and you are turning her from the Virgin Mary into a whore. We've been lied to. And this is the absolute truth. So 11 is the Mastar number. And we must enter through the 11, the twin temples, the twin towers. And that's our essence. So that eastern gate is the eye of the needle. And so what is this very famous ancient parable about the eye of the needle? It is easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than it is a rich man into heaven. And now do you see everything? Because the eastern gate of the ancient city of Jerusalem, known as the gate of the eye of the needle, is where the trading Bedouin of the desert came back with their riches to get back into the city of Jerusalem. They had to take their load off of fame, and they had to put their load onto God by being penitent, humble, on their hands and knees, and to make their way under the low trust of the gate of the eye of the needle. So the camels had to be penitent and enter into heaven upon earth. Jerusalem, Jericho, is this middle room, the third chamber of Solomon's temple. It's the third ventricle of your brain. Everything is talking about human physiology. Everything is talking about the human brain. The eye of the needle is the eye of the hurricane. There's a storm all around you. Outside of the eye, it is chaos. That's your left brain. And when you cross over into the eye, that's the single eye, the third eye, Ajna, which is the sixth chakra. The third eye is the optic thalamus, the light of the world. And when we do this, we become the 13th cranial nerve, which is known as the Christ nerve. We turn the third ventricle with the pineal and the pituitary gland, father, mother, into the one master cranial nerve, and that is the Christ nerve, and that's called Christ consciousness. And then you are the risen man. You are Buddha. You are Muhammad. You are Krishna. You are Zarathustra. You are Horus. You are Mithra. You are Dionysus. You are Christ Jesus. When you do this, you must do this. This is our task. So, in the last 16 minutes of the show here, we only need 16 minutes to do this. If you're struggling with meditation, it's because you're not virtuous. It's because your conscious is weighed down by all the terrible decisions you're making during the day, all of the sinful decisions. And you can justify it all you want. And I know, because I used to do this to myself all the time too. I need to do these things to feed my family. That's an honorable thing. And it isn't. It isn't, because you're only condemning you and your family to living off the teat of organized society. And they only give you pennies. They make you live. Remember what I said to you three radio shows ago, and I said to you, these Illuminati, this cabal, it isn't about how much money they have. It's about how little money we have. That's what it's about. Because to be controlling, you have to have slaves. And slaves are people who see themselves as being poor, of not having anything of value. And all the value in the world is within you. It is the choices you make. So, first, if you wish to meditate, guess what? You have to still and silence your mind. And do you know what the pyramids in Egypt are? They are deprivation chambers. That's what they are. And they mimic the third ventricle of the brain perfectly. The center chamber in the Great Pyramid at Cheops mimics the exact location, exact size of the optic thalamus. The king's chamber up and to the right is the exact size and location proportionally of the pineal gland to the optic thalamus, the middle chamber. The queen's chamber down and to the left is the exact size, distance in proportion to the pituitary gland to the optic thalamus of our brain. This is miracle upon miracle. And these are idiotic ancient people who didn't know anything. You think that these ancient people were stupid or something? We're stupid. That's why they wrote rudimentary structures on the wall. That's, again, another Steely Dan song. The Caves of Altamara. The Caves of Altamara. Alta, high, Myra, to see. High vision. The Caves of High Vision is going within your third ventricle. And on the wall, they wrote it down. Before there was even any Hollywood, they heard the call and they wrote it on the wall. For you and me, we understood. They wrote those simple diagrams of stickmen with animals and stuff because they knew that we were going to become the idiots. They knew that we were the idiotic ones. They knew that we were the fallen ones. That it's not stupid ancients who were going, this what I see, I give you on wall, I smart. No, it's for us that eat cows, that murder cows, that murder animals. Cows, they're such... They feel so much, they give so much, they're such the most beautiful, loving creations, and we are the stick people hunting animals on the wall. Those people who wrote it on the wall from the deep past, they were breatharians. They didn't eat the solid foods. They just took manna from heaven, which is thought from God, which nourishes all. That's what they did. And you get that through meditation. Okay, so we have to go to the right. This is the process of meditation, stillness and silence. And again, back then, they didn't have these great cities, and they still built a massive deprivation chamber in the desert. Why? To tell you how important it is to be quiet. Chapter 6 in the book of Matthew in the Bible. What does Christ say? What does Jesus Christ say about what prayer is? Prayer is meditation. This is in Matthew 6:6. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seest in secret shall reward thee openly. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye have asked him. After this manner therefore pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Oh my God, give us this day our daily bread. They're telling you, we repeat these things in church every day as the Lord's Prayer, and we don't even understand the basis to what's being said. Thy kingdom cometh. Luke, Mark, Matthew, they all said these things. They all taught these things. Luke 17:21, thy kingdom does not come with observation. It comes from within because God is within you. This is, thy kingdom come from within you. Thy will be done in earth as in heaven. Heaven upon earth is going within you into your head. Give us our daily bread. Bread, manna. Manna is not bread. It's not food. It's not mete. It is thought. It's God's pure thoughts. Eat of the nourishment of God's thoughts. Don't take thought for yourself. Crucify the left brain. Take the load off of Fanny and put the load right back on God. Manna from heaven is consuming the wisdom of God's teaching. And that's why you have to cast your net to the right. How did Christ feed 5,000 people? With 2 fish. 2 fish are Pisces. Pisces is the sign right before Aries, which is our new year, which is how we live forever. A man arising, which is Passover. And I did that on show number 2, and I'll have that up on our website very shortly, because that is the ultimate end of the story of stories, is Passover and how we live forever. So that's Aries. Pisces is right before Aries. So the closest thing to living forever through knowing God is casting thy net to the right, to be in Pisces, which is right next to Aries. It's all astrologically based because it's all based on the 12 cranial nerves of the third ventricle of your brain. This is the miracle within us. And lead us not into temptation. The moon goddess sin, ruling over our 5 physical senses in the left brain, the tapeworm, the ego. But deliver us from that evil tapeworm. For thine is thy kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Amen Ra. Amen Ra. Amen Ra is Amen Ra. You have to be alkaline. And who is Amen Ra? Osiris. What is Osiris, the Egyptian god? What does Osiris mean? Os is open, iris is eye, open eye, the single third eye. You must go within to the center room of Solomon's temple. Every book is telling you the same story. They just tell it a little differently. So we must go within, and we go into a closet in silence. So first off, when you meditate, my friends, you do not have to sit in any one of these specific postures. The reason that Krishna and others have talked about specific positions, and the classic position where you see the lotus position, essentially, where the legs are crossed inwardly on one another. And remember to tuck your chin down, because that centers and balances your skull to Atlas, the 33rd vertebrae of the spine. When you do that, you are creating the spine open. All of the vertebrae are open, and so the energy of the superhighway chakra, which is what meditation is all about, is able to flow freely up the superhighway. So that is a great position, but it's not necessary. I'm so busy now, I don't have the time to sit down and meditate. So I am meditating as I do my work, because it's all about stilling the physical mind. So I'm not taking thought. I have work to do. I leave that to my physical body. It knows what to do. People, we prove this time and again by sleepwalking. You're fast asleep, but your body's moving around. You're not even conscious of it. You're driving down the highway with your kids in the back seat going 100 miles an hour, and you just zoned out for 5 minutes, and you go, oh my God, where was I? Yike. My kids are in the back and I'm going 100 miles an hour. I don't remember the last 5 minutes. That's meditation. When you're an artist, why do all these artists are the ones that find the truth? Because to create art, you have to be in a state of meditation. You go to the right, you cross the river to the right, and you enter up into heaven upon earth. This is what meditation is. It's stilling your 5 physical senses. The best way to do it is to literally go into a closet if that's what you need. That's what the pyramids were, deprivation chambers, massive, silent, in the darkness, so that your physical senses are not stimulated at all. Take no thought. And once you still your mind, God comes immediately. And there's no mistaking who it is that comes. You'll know that it's the Father. Have any of you ever taken ayahuasca? Or have you had the psilocybin mushrooms? Have you had the Amanita muscaria mushrooms? Have you had mescaline and the mez from Egypt and Persia? All of these natural hallucinogenic that God creates is simply creating what you create when you connect to God in meditation. You don't need these things. That's why every time you use them, the effect gets less and less and less. It's teaching you not to cheat. That is a 1 or 2 or 3 time cheat. There's nothing wrong with that, because it shows you that the answers are with the Father and the Mother within. Once you've got the connection, once you've picked up the phone, hang it back up. Hang it back up. Don't leave long distance collecting minutes forever. Hang the phone up, because you've now learned the answer, and that is to meditate going within. So stillness and silence, you need to be still. You need to be silent. And I'm going to leave you with 2 things again. 1, there is a reason why the greatest masters and the greatest masters of the risen man are the ancient Catholic monks, who were called the monks. And they were all eventually murdered by the Catholic Church. They tolerated them for a while to unify the church as one body, left them to themselves. And during that time, these Catholic monks wrote a whole bunch of material in hopes that it would never be lost. And these writings were eventually collected together, and they're called the Nag Hammadi. And the Nag Hammadi, Naghammadi, is something that you can actually acquire now. And of course, all of the most important stuff has been censored out of the Nag Hammadi, but there is a ton of important stuff in there. And it's because these monks were left to themselves, and they meditated and meditated and meditated. And guess what happens? When you become so good at meditating, you become lighter than air, because you are the light of God. Your whole body fills with light. Matthew 6:22. If thine eye be single, thy whole body fills with light. You need to think of these words holistically. What is light? It's not just bright as opposed to dark. Light is light. It means you rise. And that's why you see all these ancient pictures of these monks who are levitating. Levitation. We know that this exists because you've seen it in like the Harrier jet. It's magnetism. That's how Harrier jets are able to defy gravity. You can levitate through meditation. Again, what is meditation? Raising the Kundalini Mother Magnetic Mary. Mother Mary magnetism. It rises. It's light. It is white. It is pure. The Mother is pure. That's the Kundalini. It is released when you meditate. So if you get really, really, really good at meditation, you can literally begin to levitate off the ground. That's why all those images of those monks were in levitation. And guess what they did? They used what I was sharing with you earlier. That's called the monadic circle with the monadic dot. Draw it on the wall yourself, or get a picture of it and print it out or whatever. Draw it on the wall yourself. It is a circle, and in the center is a dot. When you go to meditation, stare at it. That's what I did in the beginning. Stare, and just stare. And you take no thought. You're just focused on that dot. And guess what will happen? It disappears. It is a sign that your physical body is disappearing and you are entering into who you really are, which is your metaphysical spirit, your soul, your spirit form, metaphysical form, and you are now connecting to God. And why did I leave everything down to the last couple of minutes here for this? Because there's nothing else for me to teach you or tell you. Once you do this, God comes to you. I guarantee it. And you will know that it is God. And when God comes to you, you will establish over time the greatest relationship ever. And you will learn everything from within. Everything about history will come from his books, his wisdom, his knowledge. He has all the perspective on high. He has seen everything, and he will share all things with you. The more you meditate, the better you get, the greater connection that exists, the greater high that you have coming through meditation. And the whole point of this is that you become so often in the right brain that is who you are. You are righteousness. You are right. And then you'll make all of your decisions of the right brain, helping other people and all people. You'll never touch meat again. Why would you ever think that killing death gives you life? Of course it doesn't. And even if it was the greatest thing in the world, which it isn't, it's the worst. Meat, dairy, eggs are the worst. But even if they were the best, you still wouldn't do it because it's taking life. And you wouldn't do that as a righteous being. So, monadic circle, stare at it until the dot in the center disappears, and then it's signifying the disappearance of your physical form, and there you are with God, and he will tell you everything. You won't need me anymore. You won't need Colleen and I as teachers. And aren't those the kind of teachers that you want? Who will say that you will become better than I, you will do greater things than I, you will go further than I, you will become your own Buddha, your own Bodhisattva, your own Master. That's what we teach. We love you. We want you to be free and to be happy. We want you to have real freedom, but real freedom is within you, not outside of you. That is the distraction. That is the tapeworm of the apple. Eat not of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Eat of the tree of life, which is within you. Eat of the gift of God, the manna from heaven. And it's not food. It's pure thought. Take no thought. And I'm going to leave you with this. This is the last part of the show. Matthew 6:22, Jesus, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will fill with light. In the following verses of the book of Matthew in chapter 6, Jesus says 5 times, take no thought. Take no thought for your life. Take no thought for your life. Why? Because the 5 times he says it are symbolic of the 5 wounds that Jesus suffered upon the cross, because we must kill all of our 5 physical senses to ascend to our 6th and 7th senses. And remember, the 6th and 7th senses tie into the 6th and the 7 chakras. The 6th chakra, the highest in body, is the Ajna chakra, which is the 3rd eye, illuminates the pineal gland, and that creates the crown upon your head. The 7th chakra, the final chakra that leads you to heaven upon earth, connected to God, is the crown chakra, the Sahasrara, the Sahasrara. Ajna 6, Sahasrara 7. The crown chakra 6 and 7, which are above the bottom 5. The first 5 chakras are of the physical body. You must go through them and pass them. The 5th chakra is the throat chakra. That's right at the blood-brain barrier. That's right at Atlas. That's crucifixion. You must die of your 5 chakras, your 5 physical senses, and you will exalt to your 6th and 7th chakras, and you will know God, and you will not need me any longer. And I long for that day, my brothers and sisters, because then you can help and teach me to become better and wiser. You can help me help others. That's what this world needs, is more righteous teachers. I don't have anything to sell you. All of Collywog and our information is free. It will always be free. We're working on building a breakaway society. We're going to invite for free all those that want to come and join us and live in a land of Satyagraha and Ahimsa, causing no harm to anyone, and living life how we choose to live life freely. So thank you for being with me. Thank you so much to Shaz for producing the show today, and his brilliant show, The Knights of the Round Table. Brilliant no-sees. Thank you to Gary and all of the beautiful family, Patty, everyone at People for People Radio. Such a beautiful, righteous family that I'm proud to be a part of. And thank you to all of you, the beautiful, beautiful souls who want more. And you deserve more. So with that, I will say good night. And Kali Wag, and I love you forever.